Welcome to the Dance Centre podcast. I am your host, Claire French, and I'm joining you from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, also known as Vancouver, Canada. I'll be talking to dancers, choreographers and other members of the dance world here on the West Coast to find out more about their creative work and practices, and to discuss what it means to us to be dance professionals today. Thanks for joining us. I'm talking to Yvonne Chartrand, Chartrand, depending on how you want to say it. Not that I said it that differently that time between the two. Yvonne is Artistic Director of company V'ni Dansi and the Louis Riel Mitchin Dancers. And I'm talking with Yvonne at this time, particularly because of a presentation that's going to be happening at the Dance Centre in June, very close to when this podcast will actually, when you'll be hearing this podcast, listeners, very close to that. It's just nice as we're in this space. I'm enjoying watching you do that.
Thank you. Acknowledge our ancestors and give thanks for everything that has come before us and everything that's given to us now and everything for the future generations, 7 generations ahead of us. And just have this smudge going while we have a little conversation and bring our ancestors in to help guide us. And
is it sage or
I've got some sage and a bit of tobacco that I feel is important to connect with the plants and the animals, spirits, and the plants and themselves. Yeah, it's kind of one of the most amazing teachings that I've gotten in the last while working on Mitchin di Mitchif. Mm-hmm. And it was an elder, Alana Young, from the Medicine Collective at UBC, and that's one thing that she shared, was that it was the animals and the plants and the animals that came up with the idea of offering tobacco so that the humans can speak with them and have that communication. So it's just something that something that I've always used, but something that I didn't realize that came from the plants and the animals themselves. So I just feel really connected to that teaching now.
Oh gosh, I'd love to know more about how that interaction or like sense of offering or invitation came to be realized.
Well, in the early days when I started to learn about different plant medicines and picking plant medicines, my teaching was to always offer tobacco, because you never take anything without giving anything. Mm-hmm. And so that practice I started with many, many years ago. And then it just really made sense when Alana said to me that it was the plants and the animals that came up with that idea. So it's kind of like, it's just really important process for me to give before I take, and to only take what you need. That was like the other teaching that's really important, is even when you're connecting to that plant, and you just take a little bit, only what you need, or if you're picking for somebody else, you can take for them as well, like for elders or people that can't go into the meadows or the bush or wherever you are to pick medicine. So yeah, it's just about that reciprocity.
Yeah.
In not just taking, because which is kind of what the mainstream culture, like, there's a lot of that going on about just taking, and the greed and all of the overpicking and things like that, which starts to deplete things.
Almost entitlement to something, or a response to take first, like as a kind of the consequences of that. I hear you. I feel that there's a lot we can learn always from these kind of older kind of cultures that have been dealing with the kind of a care of practice and a care of exchange as their very being. So I think that's a beautiful kind of
Yeah.
Segue kind of start for us into like just, how you're setting up your space for this conversation and how I'm kind of able to be with you in that and to watch you do that. And it feels like for me, it feels like a really lovely, unconventional and authentic way of beginning this conversation, Yvonne. So I'm delighted that we've had this exchange
Yeah.
at the start. So we have so many things that we can start to talk about, beginnings of conversations, kind of introductions, and I'm just already feeling quite different in my body for this interview, which I am kind of cherishing at the moment, and just kind of enjoying for myself. But what I feel like is lovely about what we were just saying is already we're talking about collaboration and interaction and a kind of care of interaction with the world around us, and with respect for and appreciation for things that are already in our world, and how much of that is for us, how much of that we're kind of like in a relationship with these things that isn't about necessarily taking. And I just want to draw that into what you were saying about we take what we need, or we work with those elements not just for what we need in an entitled way, but having an awareness of what it is that we're taking and what it is that we're using it for. And I feel like that's a wonderful segue into collaborative work in artistic practice. I would very much like to know how you have been collaborating with Santa Fe's Dancing Earth, and I would like you to talk a little bit about how that collaboration has evolved, had to adapt, what it's become, how you've been collaborating, and how you're collaborating now on this project. Because I know there's such a wealth of information and insight there, because it's had to be postponed several times, and it's moved. And of course, with that, it's also it has more life in a sense, because it's been through those different cycles and different kind of ways of being. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that collaboration, however you would like to talk about it, in ways that you feel is important for you right now to talk about. So back to you,
Mhm.
Yvonne.
Thank you. Well, let's see. It's all started way, way back in, let's see, 1998 when I first met Rulan Tangen through when I was mentoring with Karen Jameson in my third year of the main dance professional training program. And so Rulan was a wonderful, beautiful dancer, as all of the dancers were incredibly inspiring in that project. I think it was called The River Home. So Rulan and I really connected. She was the kind of dancer that saw the apprentice in the room and spent time with me, and we did like warm up exercises together, and movements and different things, exploring different little movements and things like that. So right away, it was an instant connection for us. And I really appreciated just the attention that she gave me and the teachings that she had given me. And I knew that she had an extensive career in New York. So I found that very exciting. I did go to New York for 5 days and I went to the Martha Graham Dance School every morning, and then went to art galleries every afternoon. I was at the University of Manitoba in Visual Arts, so that's where I started off. And then every evening we went to dance performances, and I saw my first opera there. So it was very exciting to be in the Big Apple, and just to know that she had a career there already was pretty intriguing. And so after that, we met at the Banff Centre for the Arts, the Aboriginal Dance Program, and there was 2 years that we attended together. And 1 year was a creation phase, and then the second year was a production phase. So again, Rulan was like just very warm and loving kind of human being that just really, really connected really well with many dancers on many levels. And so we spent that chunk of time together, and then we went back to our own communities and developed our dance companies. And then I saw her again at the Talking Stick Festival, and and then shortly after, I think it was a year or two later, she invited me to an international choreographers gathering in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She had brought indigenous people from all over the world, Australia, India, all over Canada, the States. Like there was just a huge amount of cultures there, and what I loved about that process was it was all about seeds and plants and nurturing, like that connection with Mother Earth. And so I thought, well, what am I going to bring there? And I had always been really inspired by Christy Belcourt's Medicines to Heal Us. She had created a visual art, a painting, and I was just fascinated by this. And also with the knowledge keeper Rose Richardson, who's from Saskatchewan. She knew a lot about plant medicines, and that's where Christy Belcourt went to her for that information to create her art, her painting. And so that I was really excited about. I thought, well, I wanted to work. I had that book, and I had the painting, and I had this tool teaching kit that I wanted to use, and I knew I held on to it for many, many years, and so this was my opportunity to begin using it. So then I was at the John Arcan Fiddle Fest in August. It was always the second weekend in August, and then I was going to just drive south to Santa Fe, and so I had talked to my father earlier to tell him the adventure that I was about to embark on. And my dad goes, "Oh," he says, "well, your great aunt Zita was the doctor, the healer of the community, our community of Saint Laurent." And he started telling me different things, that she delivered babies, and he remembered her taking some kind of he was just like 5 or 6 years old, and she took some kind of plants, and he scraped his knee or something, and he remembers she put something on his knee, and then the next day it was like literally gone. Like, so I was just over the moon hearing about that, and I just felt even such a deeper, stronger connection, and really felt like I was on the right path. And when I went down there, it was amazing because sometimes we were in the studio doing our warm-ups doing class in the morning, but the majority of the time we were out on the land and dancing on the earth, as you can see, dancing earth. And it was an incredible experience for me, just every day rolling around in sand and new types of earth, and experiencing new plants. And we went on a trip to some areas close by, and visited with a lot of the indigenous people from that area. And there were some healers in there too, and the people were incredible and kind, and there was a lot of healing going on also with some of the elders. They gave us some healing words and insights into who we were as people, like individuals. And so there was many experiences. And the other beauty was that every evening we sat together, and people donated food from all over the place, so we cooked together, and we shared our cultures through story, song, dance, and music. And so each evening, somebody took a turn to share. And so that was like the beginning of the collaboration. And so I could see how everybody was working together, developing like smaller works, but then we wove them together like a sash and created this beautiful evening of work. So when I did my piece, one thing that I really like is sometimes I like humor, and so I thought, well, how can I bring out that humor in my dance piece? So I figured out a few ways, and I had been working with a clown, with David McMurray Smith, and doing some clown work. And so that at the time, that was really strong in myself, and I was feeling more confident about playing with different ideas and making people laugh at really silly things. So I incorporated some of that into the work as well. And yeah, it was just an incredible experience. And so then at the end of it, I just felt like, here we were, two artists that had developed their companies, and I thought, well, why don't we do? And I really wanted to carry on with this Mitchif Medicines theme, and so then I just was inspired to ask, and she said yes, and so then I just applied for the funding, and we received it, and then there's so much to tell. Like, I just
I
keep going
know.
on and on, but
It's good. It's great. But two things that come to mind for me is I was going to ask why the title seemed so literal. In parentheses, you put kind of come and dance in Mitchif. But with what you've just talked about, like to come and dance is actually, you've helped me understand the weightedness, but not in a kind of heavy kind of conceptual way, but more in this idea of what it means to dance. To dance means to share a culture. It means to share in aspects of self and a people, and to come and dance in Mitchif with all of this knowledge that you've just shared with us, all of this context you've just provided. It allows for us to see that to say come and dance is to bring your whole self to the experience, and that dancing, it for me, it helps connect dancing to the whole self. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And that was just a beautiful way for me to say, you might read come and dance in Mitchif, but now having heard this podcast, you'll understand everything you can put into that. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Mhm.
Will the company be here then with you? Are they coming, are they performing with you in the space?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
the dancers are coming in May 26th, and then we go into rehearsal on May 27th.
yeah,
And we'll be in the studio remounting the work for a couple of weeks, and then we go into the theater for a couple of weeks. Yeah,
yeah. So that's
going
great.
to really look at all the technical aspects, like what will happen when people walk in the room. For example, we have many ideas of just what people, the sensory experiences that people will have when they walk into the room, and the visuals, and working with sets and design is something that we're really excited about exploring. We've had many ideas over the years that we'll finally be able to put into play, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to play in the theater for, and then we'll make decisions as we play on what we will be sharing in the final piece, in the final world premiere production.
You have so
Not the
much.
final world premiere production, but in the world premiere production.
Yeah. Yeah, you have so
Yeah.
much, so much to draw on, so much to draw from. It's quite an
Mhm.
exciting time. Yeah.
Yes, and all of those walks that we had when we were, walking on the land, listening to the elders and the knowledge keepers share their stories and their knowledge. A lot of inspiration came from being on the land and being with these knowledge keepers, and the ideas just filtered. We have a big long list of ideas that we would like to explore, and so those are the things that I'm really excited about, super excited.
Mhm.
And I'm just so grateful for the dance center for gifting us this technical residency. It's really exciting for me. I can't wait to get in there.
Great. Can't wait to see what you do. That's great to have a sense of the fact that the company will be with you in the flesh, like the collaboration will be felt live, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I can't. It was difficult for me to do it without them in the room, and I was
Yeah.
like, like,
Yeah.
it's not an international collaboration if you don't have your international artists with you.
With you. I know,
So
but where there's been a whole, where there's meant so many different things over the last, couple of years. especially, I think, we're kind of much more open to what that has to mean, so
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
really
it's great.
excited for them to arrive. And since the majority of the choreography is done, Rulan's stepped down
Yeah.
from dancing, and she's sending one of her Indigenous
Oh, okay.
dancers,
Oh,
Sarah Hogland Guru, and so she'll be dancing in her space. So
yeah.
we will have like the conversations.
Are you dancing as well, Yvonne, or are you in
Yes,
your work? Yes.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Good.
yeah,
Yeah. Great. Yeah. It's
yeah, and
wonderful.
we have dramaturge and
Yeah.
it's
And
okay.
it's always nice to keep the conversations going, for the conversations not to stop at, if you can, like if time allows and pressure allows for the conversations to continue. It's always great if that can happen. But yeah, I mean, the show is here, it's happening. So there's it's the epitome of persistence, resilience, and patience, I think, in the way that this has happened. So I'm very excited to see it, and to yeah, to experience this collaboration. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about jigging. Just to
Sure.
jump into, like,
Always.
yeah, always, yeah, of course. Well, why not? And what? Why wouldn't we? I like that you talk about it as a fusion of influences, because that's something I can immediately relate to. I mean, I think contemporary dance is a fusion of influences, anyway, especially now. But a question I have is, how far away can one go from the fiddle music, the costume, for what is happening, for the dance to still be considered jigging? Like, would you? Because it seems to me like the traditional side of it with the fiddle music and the costume is a big part of calling it jigging beyond the steps themselves. There's something about the relationship and the integration of those things that's really important. And I'll get a little bit to your the way that you talk about your contemporary dance training influencing, and how that's influenced your body in jigging. But as jigging, would you say that it has to have fiddle music, and there has to be a representation in the costume of tradition to call it jigging? Where do you where where is that for you?
Well,
It might not matter. It might not matter. You might not, but
the first thing that I'll say to you is that costumes are for clowns. No.
but you have clown training too, so
Yeah.
yeah,
And, well, the costumes are for clowns. Costumes, uh, for the tr I don't really use the word costumes for our clothing and our outfits. That's how we refer to them as, because they're traditional, their clothing. It's like we still wear this clothing even at festivals and events and gatherings across the Métis homeland. So so we don't put our costume on and go out to an event. We just put our clothing on and our outfits on, and we go to our events. And so I think, like, traditionally, a long time ago, I would imagine that if there is a time, this question is making me think of many things. So there's like, of course, the music is such the heart and the soul of of the jigging. However, there's such a thing as mouth music that you can just go
yeah.
and so there's like mouth music. So I've used the jigging in a lot of the rhythms and the textures of the dance and the choreography. So it's almost like it's inside of me, and I search for, like, because our Métis music is, there's so many crooked tunes, and
I love the term
like,
crooked. I love
yeah,
that.
there's
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, me too. From John Arcan, the master of the Métis fiddle, I learned that from him, and
Yes.
so so I like to work with kind of those kind of rhythms and textures, and of course When I put my traditional outfit on, I really feel like that connection to like the way that we danced a long time ago, and 100 fancy steps, and that just the beautiful long dresses and all the beautiful satins, the silks, the velvets, the lace, the beadwork, the quill work, the like when you put this clothing on, it just it brings me back to that time several hundred years ago. It just puts me in another time zone, and that's what I love about it. And then when I put my square dance outfit on, and what are contemporary, there's so many square dance groups that are out there right now. Like our dances are like, we have like our traditional Red River jig, and then we have many traditional dances like the reels and line dances, like the reel of four, the reel of eight, la danse de crochet, which is more contra dancing, and polkas, heel into a polka, waltzes, and those kind of things. So when I put my square dance outfit, and a lot of elders and things with the clickers and stuff like that, that's not part of our culture, but that's where the young people are like really investing a lot of their energy in, and innovation. And so there's kind of like a feeling of a strong feeling of creativity, and creating different patterns, different steps, different influences from a lot of different genres. It's pretty much like contemporary dance, like anything goes. You can really be like kind of and do that. And so I think even in La Mitchin di Mitchif, we took some of the traditional choreography, and we played with different ideas, and like using different levels, and kind of, some people may recognize some of the dances in the choreography, but some may not, like. So that was really exciting for me to explore like even patterns, and rhythms and things like that, and just kind of mixing and blending them into within the choreography. So yeah, it was really great to explore multiple ideas of how do you work with the jigging in contemporary ways. And I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
No, that's great. It's leading me into another thing, but I also just want to mention that I think thank you for saying outfit and not costume, and for making like bringing the humor out, and costumes are for clowns, because two things happened for me there. And there's the one when you started to mention traditional clothing, like it's almost like it takes you to another time, like, and you feel like you're connected to another time. I think it made me think very quickly, and flashing through why I use the term costume, because of this idea of period, and this idea of it representing a kind of a period of time. And so I think that's where the term is kind of where it's nice to call it an outfit, traditional outfits, and get away from calling these things costumes, because I just really appreciate I think that's a contemporary thing too. I think what it allows is for what you are wearing to not be to connect you to another time, but not to represent that other time. And I think that's just, I just wanted to mention that, because the body who's dancing it now, and this is a segue into your somatic work a little bit, is kind of changing the form a little bit because of their influences from present day, in how the body itself is either formed and moves and is shaped and is influenced. So I think that's just a nice way to remember and to remind us when we're watching the work, that we're also watching its presence now. And we have these visual representations and these ties to the past that are so important. But as you said in the very beginning, it's also about kind of creating a space for moving forward with that information, and allowing for the innovation to kind of speak to the past in a way we don't yet know. So it's kind of got this kind of lovely, one of those places where languaging becomes very important, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Well, I said costume once to my elder Maria Campbell, and that's what she said to me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just said it.
I mean,
When I say that, and that's for the traditional clothing, like for contemporary dance, we will be wearing costumes for there. We've got Evan Ducharme, who's
Yeah,
our costume
designer.
designer,
Yeah.
who's creating some pretty special I guess costumes that I'm really looking forward to. They should be arriving very shortly, and yeah, so
And I think it's great
that's
because
gonna, that's going to
then,
be really exciting.
yeah, in that situation, they are designed for this presentation.
Hmm.
So it's not that they are like representative of the culture. They are for the presentation. There's a concept in this work, it's an artwork. So, costume is then tied to the artistic practice, which is a contemporary work. So, I think that's a really nice way of bringing that in. But also, you do say, I'm going to quote something that you've put in a blog to the Dance Center, was just about the infinity symbol on the Métis flag, if I'm quoting you, on our Métis flag, one side representing our First Nations ancestry and the other side our European ancestry. Each is distinct, yet when blended, created a brand new nation. And then I want to tie that, well, you tie this actually in your blog. You say your relationship to dance is the same, that you have the one side of this, kind of the traditional, and then you have the somatic practice and all of the contemporary dance practice that's informing you. And you say it beautifully, where you say it allows an ease and freedom in your body as you perform the Métis work. And I just think that's I wanted to capture that in this podcast because I just think if you want to talk more about that, you're very articulate with it in the words when I was reading about, and you've already mentioned patterning and imagery and those kinds of things, but it goes deeper in terms of the kinds of images, that come from Métis culture, and then your own connection to that through your somatic work. So, or your contemporary dance movement training. Would you like to talk to some of that?
Sure. I think the first thing that I'm going to say is in terms of the word Métis. That is a French word that means mixed, and my father never told me that. He never heard that word until he went to school, and so he grew up self-identifying as Mitchif, and he told me that Mitchif means the people and the language, much like French, right? French means the people and the language, so you can relate it in that way, French from France, right? And so it made a lot of sense to me, and I think Métis has brought on a lot of confusion, and I've heard more and more over the years, especially in the East Coast, where like in maybe Quebec and farther east, where people say, well, I'm Métis, I'm mixed, like, but you need to, like, you can be First Nations, like say Cree, for example, and Scottish, but you identify with the Cree culture. So Mitchif, Métis or Mitchif, it is belonging to a community, and that's really really important. Is like, where are you from? That's a common question that people will ask. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Saint Laurent, Manitoba. Like, where are you from? Sort of idea. So then like, what, there's a lot of diversity as well in the languages. There's no official written way to write the language. So you'll see different ways of writing, because they're, Michif, people didn't say Mitchif French and Mitchif Cree and all lacrosse Mitchif and all these different terms for the language. People just spoke Mitchif. And but now, that people are kind of like looking at it and studying it, people are kind of classifying it as different things. And there's even more different things that I'm not going to get into that, but it's even more confusing. But yeah, there's probably about 5 or 6 different Mitchif languages that are out there. So just touching on that, I just felt like that was a little bit of important.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Very important.
so,
Yeah.
and then the flag, like the First Nations ancestry, can be Cree, Soto, Dene, Blackfoot, mostly the First Nations from the prairies area,
Yeah.
like for the
Right.
prairie area, and that's really important. So, and then the European can be, French, Scottish, Irish, English, and Scandinavian, from what I've told, so that you can have different diversity in the Michif. Like some will have more French or Cree or French or Scottish or Irish kind of English kind of ancestry, and of course when our people get together, you begin to hear this. Everybody loves to talk about their family and their ancestry, and that all starts to happen. And so there's, nobody really knows how the Mitchif culture was created and formed, but it was, suddenly the strongest in the 1800s. And there was like 10,000 Métis in Manitoba alone, like around the time when Louis Riel was created the provisional government and legally, and he was standing up for the rights of the First Nations, the European and the Métis people that were already in Manitoba, and that's why he created the province of Manitoba. But like, there's a lot of influences from these different cultures, like in the dance form itself, and also I think about that too, like what is the European influence. Like, I love classical music, I love, traditional powwow, I love the jigging, I love, like, there's all these different influences and these different rhythms. And I can go back. I'm a seventh generation Mitchif person, so it's like Métis, 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 Métis. But I do have like these grandmothers that are First Nations, and I kind of feel like when I'm creating a work, it's almost like just like I asked for the ancestors to come in and be with me today, while I have this conversation. So it's like these inspirations, are they the voices of the ancestors? Are they the knowledge of the ancestors? There you go, the knowledge keeping, the elders that carry that knowledge, and it's our ancestors that pass us this knowledge and this information in many mysterious ways. Like, you can have all kinds of experiences, like what in the beginning, like we took the international artists and we just walked on the land. And when you say all my relations, that means like it doesn't mean just your ancestors, it means all your relations, everything that you're connected to, the kinship. It's like the animals, the plants, the medicines, the just the earth, the stars, the sky world, like all of these, everything that you're connected to. So we drew upon all of these different kinds of influences, like the plants and the animals. Like, what kind of relationship do they have? What kind of relationship do humans have with plants? What kind of relationship do plants have with the earth? We can't ignore what our people have been through, what Indigenous people have been through. Like, it's proven genocide now, and we need to look at that and consider that, and what effect did that have on our people? Why am I not connected to knowing my great grandmother was the healer of my community? How come I didn't know that before, right? Like, so there's that disconnect, like that. We were pushed off our lands. People were living in the ditches, and we went through wars, and there was a lot of disbursement and devastation that happened. I think getting back to the land has been really the strongest influence for me. Like, when we took the international collaborators, Dancing Earth dancers, to our homelands, I would have loved to also bring them to Manitoba and even Alberta, for that matter. Go up
Yeah.
into the Northwest Territories. Like, there's all these different kinds of medicines, and like,
Yeah.
also, and down into the, like, even in the States, right, in the Montana area, and South Dakota, North Dakota, and that there in the Turtle Mountain areas, got relatives there
Mm.
too. So we don't have that border really. So
Yeah.
that connection to the First Nations, Indigenous cultures, like that's where our knowledge comes from. So honoring our grandmothers and all the medicines that they've picked, and all of the healing that they've done through the different plant medicines. So I felt it was really important, and especially Rose Richardson from Green Lake, who Christy Belcourt
Yeah.
got the knowledge, and she wanted to be called knowledge keeper. And so she has an incredible story that I could that's amazing to share, but just really grateful for her. And Maria Campbell shared, and we had Joseph Natauhau who shared with us. And even like personally, it's like this connection to plants and plant medicine made me think about all the different experiences from on my own personal journey. I started to recollect all these different medicine picking and connection to the land, and uh, experiences that I've had over the years. And just a lot, all that knowledge, and there was a lot of inspiration that came from those experiences. And so I felt it was really important for, like, when I walked on the earth in Santa Fe, it's so different there. And you experience, we ran into a snake, and we experienced like all these just different beautiful landscapes. And I felt it was really important for the dancers to be in these different landscapes, and have those connections with the elders and the knowledge keepers, and the land, and the waters, and when we saw bears running, we were able to actually go to an untouched script land from the 1800s. It was it's a piece of script land really close to Batoche on the other side of the river, where we were able to go. And it was very interesting. The night before that we got there, a bear had came and jumped on the cottage, I guess you could say. And so there's these bear prints on the wall. And yeah, the woman that owns this land, she woke
Okay.
up in the middle of the night to this bear banging on her wall. And then the next day, she just said, be careful, there's a bear around. So, but that was such a gift, like what medicine. And then we were walking on these lands, and there's these different scientists and different, like, I don't know, people who study the researchers and that sort of thing, that are very fascinated by what's growing there. And there's some things that are really, really old. And so just walking on that land in particular was really incredible and really beautiful. And then we saw a couple of bears. I didn't see them because I had to bring this elder back. I walked with her, and we saw some bear prints on the way.
Whoa.
And then while we were gone, the dancers saw these bears running across this big open meadow. And so I
Wow.
missed seeing the bears, but all the dancers saw the bears. And yeah, but bears are like our protectors and good healing energy. So for these artists to come from Santa Fe and experience, like wow. And even our videographer, who is Métis, we went to many different areas and different places around Saskatoon, and he just was like, wow, this was just such an incredibly rich experience, like, just really thanks me for creating this opportunity. And and our elders are like our knowledge. They're like our universities. They carry
Yeah.
so much knowledge
Yeah.
that it's just spending a couple of hours with them, and listening to them talk about their life experience, and sharing, whatever they share, like that is such an important element. And that those stories, they go inside of your body and they live there. And even seeing those actual plants, seeing those medicine plants, and then asking the dancers to embody these different plants. And then, so it's tactile. It's like that spirit of that plant, offering that tobacco, we every day. And what plants do you notice? Everyone is going to be different. Everyone is going to have different connections to different medicines. And those are the kind of things that I hope people will take away from this, is that we all, our elders are saying we all need to get back to the land and learn how to live off the land. And what medicines are calling you, what, when you go walking through the bush, or the forest, or wherever where there's plant medicines, what is going to attract you.
I think that's wonderful because I feel like it's, in a lot of my research, this idea of embodied wisdom has come up, but also this the sense of like embodying wisdom almost is really, kind of what, and wisdom in a sense of understanding that that wisdom doesn't belong to one person, and that the idea of the knowledge keeper is somebody who is not it's not a power thing. It's more as or like a gatekeeper thing, that it's not the same term as a gatekeeper. It's more that it's almost like chosen as somebody who can receive this information, to hold information, to pass on information. It's almost like it feels like
It's a
that in the way
sharing. Yeah.
it's the situation in which that information can be shared, amongst knowledge keepers, or amongst people who will have the wisdom from being open to these conversations to then be able to embody it and use that information as they move forward, to understand it, to embody it, to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what I'm getting from this sense of, it's reminding me of the Louis Riel quote that's in your email signature. um, my people will sleep for 100 years, but when they awaken, it will be the artists who give them their spirit back. You have a great story of how that connects to you, how you felt an immediate connection to that quote in your own life. But I'm also just hearing in what you're saying the layers of crossover when you receive the information about your great grandmother or your grandmother, when you receive the information about the plants from certain places, when you receive the information about the sky. It all feels very connected to me, to this idea of awakening, like, or needing the information when you need it, like it comes to you when you need it. And it has that idea of that cycle for me, of awakening it, almost like awakening this knowledge for the person who needs it. And in this context, you are doing that through art making as well, because you recognize it as knowledge and as something that can inspire your work. So, and is connected already to your work as an artist. So I just wanted to mention, I felt that looping happen in this conversation.
Yeah.
And also this idea of belonging to a community being the meta idea of community, like not necessarily all people, but the fact that there's a searching, it's a journey to belong to a community that sometimes gets divided, diffracted, pulled apart, like has to be rebuilt. There's something in that, in that, and the motivator to continue and to make sure that the community it can remain vibrant and vital, is in that quest to belong to community. I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling that cycle of kind of resilience and persistence and willingness, motivation, to be in there to keep it alive. And I love the elders being the university, because of the oral traditions of it, the fact that there are so many languages, there isn't one written language. I think that kind of also disperses the idea of a university being in so many different aspects of a culture. I think is really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm constantly learning more as I meet, all kinds of people, all kinds of Métis people. Like that's the beauty of our people, is that everybody's so full of stories and knowledge. Like, I'm constantly learning
Mm.
from uh, different elders that I meet and different people that I meet and different dancers that I meet. Like there's
Yeah,
diversity in our dances and in our culture, and it's just like going down to that international choreographers gathering where I learned so much about all these different cultures and artists. I'm still on that same journey with even my own people. Like, I'm constantly running into things that I never knew before, and there's always room for growth and yeah. So.
that's what it feels like. It feels like an ongoing, this kind of ongoing journey, that you allow it to be an ongoing learning process. And I think that's part of kind of contemporizing as well, kind of the work, being present in the work now. I think we can't not be, I think, in dance in some ways, but reminding that that's the journey we're on. It is moving forward, it is innovating at the same time. I think we'll kind of wrap it up, although I don't want to. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I could listen to you for
We're having
hours.
too much fun here.
I know. For a podcast, this is a nice way to bring it back to the actual performances that will be happening in June. And I would just like you to talk a little bit to, I think it's great, the Sunday to Tuesday, which is unusual to have performances on those days, but it's significant. So could you explain that, please?
Sure. Well, it's National Indigenous History Month for the whole month of June, so it's very exciting to be doing this work during that time. And also, it's National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st. So we wanted to make sure that that was our day. And a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years ago, it was going to be on a Saturday, which was really exciting, but now it's on a Tuesday. So we're just backing up the three performances there. And so then we thought, well, Sunday is going to be a nice day for like children or families that could come and see the work and, have a matinee and then two evening performances on Monday. And then we're sadly, National Indigenous Peoples Day is not a holiday. So I'm waiting for the Canadian government to awaken and allow so that people don't have to like skip out of work or call in sick just to come in and be with us on our
Yeah.
National Indigenous Day. So it would be nice if that could be recognized as a national holiday, much like Canada Day, so that people can participate. So that's a really important day for all of us to acknowledge our resilience and that we are still here. We have a voice, we have stories to share, we have, our beautiful culture to share with the world and with anyone who wants to be with us during those 3 days.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think one other thing too is that I'm really grateful for all the artists that are contributing to this work, and especially many of the dancers who brought their own traditional plant medicine knowledge to the choreography. So we worked a lot with the dancers and a lot of the choreography is developed with the dancers. So I feel that that's really important to acknowledge the dancers, and we've been really fortunate to be able to have these dancers that are already coming, especially Peta Salazar and Esme Olivia, who have brought their knowledge. Madeline McCallum, Elwa Homier, they're all bringing their knowledge and their experience with the plant medicines that they've brought as well. So yeah, so I'm just really grateful to all of the artists, even Gregory Coyce, who has done the slow media, and his family and his traditions that he shared with us. Yeah, so just really, that's just the joy, the love, and the beauty of our culture is when we get together, and the indigenous culture is like those the dancers from that are indigenous. Like a lot of these medicines, like they overlap, and they're Mitchif medicines, but they're also Native American, First Nations, however you want to call it. There's such similarities, and belonging to those different medicines are all of our medicines. And yeah, and I'm sure that even with the world too, there's like a lot of these medicines are part of other cultures as well. And that how do we embrace them again in this time, especially with COVID, and with the delicate condition of Mother Earth and what she is in. Like, how do we get back to the land? How do we take care of Mother Earth? How do we take care of ourselves? It's a huge question for all Indigenous people. After all of the genocide, the residential schools, the displacement, like how do we reawaken to heal and to learn that our culture is what takes care of us and what is going to bring us the healing that we need. So this work has just really brought a lot of healing, and all this knowledge is really beautiful. When I go back to Saint Laurent now, I when I go on my ancestral land, I'm like, oh, there's some rose hips. There's this medicine. There's that medicine, and I'm so excited to go home and spend some time harvesting in this summer, and yeah, and continue my what I know is going to be a lifelong journey of getting to know these different plant medicines, and how they can heal not only myself but many people.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. This is and thank you for bringing this to the dance center, or to a space where we can also share in it and feel like, because that's a step that not everybody can take, is in a position to take, to open that up and the knowledge up for us to be able to share in it in such a way. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm going to say one last thing on that
Please, yeah.
regard, is that when Louis Riel was creating the province of Manitoba, he was well known, like in many places around the world, and he had that vision. He was a really forward thinker, and he wanted to open up the world, open up Manitoba to all cultures. And so he was already back then wanting to invite people of all cultures into what was Manitoba at the time. So I think that that's really beautiful. And sometimes when I look at audiences and I see, or I go to workshops and I see, or schools, and I see people, I think about that, and I just think about like what a beautiful country that we have, and the richness and the diversity of all peoples, and
What we can learn from each other.
what we can learn from each other, and what similarities do we have, and like,
Yeah.
what plant medicines do you use?
Yeah. Yes. Well, I was thinking I used rosehip seed oil on my face. So I was
Yeah,
actually happy that you mentioned rosehip, because I was like, oh, yes, I know one benefit for me,
yeah,
purely vanity. So yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Well, thank you
yeah.
so much. I look forward to seeing the work, talking to you again. So many things we could talk about, but this is there are some such serious conversations in there, and the relationship to the land is obviously so complicated as well, with this, these stories, and the history and genocide and all of these things as well. So I think there's a whole discussion around land in that, responsibility for and accountability for ways of using land. I think there's so much, but yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted
Well, on that
to.
note, I would just, after everybody listens to this podcast, I encourage you just to go out for a walk in the forest or the bush, and look at all the beautiful plants, and they're all your relatives. They're there, and just see them, and you can talk to them too if you want, and bring your tobacco, and if you ever pick anything, just offer tobacco, and give them thanks and gratitude for whatever you take, and yeah, go for a nice walk in the nature is so healing, and our beautiful Mother Earth provides us for everything.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to breathe it in when I do get outside. I
Hmm.
will breathe it
Yeah,
in. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Yvonne. Thank you.
thank you,
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
Dance
thanks.
Center for this incredible opportunity, and really grateful for everything that the Dance Center has ever done for us. It's our second home, and we really appreciate like every moment that we spend there. So yeah, heartfelt gratitude to Myrna and everyone that works there. Thank you so much. Marcy, hi hi, miigwech, kuksjam.
Thank you so much for listening. We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, as this will help other listeners find us and help us to grow our dance audience. We'll be back next month. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook at The Dance Center, Twitter at Dance Center, and Instagram at The Dance Center BC. And if you'd like to support our work, please consider making a donation. Just go to our website at thedancecenter.ca, where you'll find extensive information about our upcoming programs and events. The music for the Dance Centre podcast was composed by James B. Maxwell. Always a pleasure to connect with you through dance. Until next time.